Hello, I'm Angel Rios, and today I'm going to present How to Think Like a Freak, based on the novel written by Stephen J. Dubner and Stephen Levitt, and presented by me. So this is a brief outline on some of the main concepts of the book that I got from my first read of it, and some important points that I think that the audiences of the book should get from it as well. And around the speech, we're going to see how this all connects to the real main theme that the book tries to center on, and exactly what influence it's trying to give on its freaks. So, freaks are often ostracized from our society, and the term freak itself is deemed weird as a result, having a negative connotation to it and really being looked down upon by people who like to think the same, people who do the same, people who act the same, the same. And the real highlight of being a freak is that you manage to succeed in ways that most people cannot, because they can see certain goals and certain objects like you can, and that allows an advantage in the long run that is more beneficial to the freak themselves, excuse my language, than to the people who like to go by the status quo, run by a common idea and stick to a common objective. And with that, there are some impressions and lessons that I got from the novel that I feel are very important to take away when experiencing for your first time yourself, which I do recommend. This book is absolutely amazing at trying to show you how to think differently in your everyday life, and it's something you should really pay attention to when you're looking at it for yourself. But regardless, one of the most iconic examples of the book that most people do know about is the World Cup free shot, or like I like to call it, the free shot dilemma. So picture this. You're in a World Cup Championship Series. You're about to make that penalty shot into the goal that'll change the world forever. Your country will know your name. You'll be known in history as one of the best soccer players that ever lived. But all you need to do is make that one goal. While this sounds very simple, it's a lot harder than you think it on. Imagine yourself as the kicker. Your only enemy is the goalie. It's a mind game between the two people. If you make this kick successfully, you'll get the glory and adoration from everybody from your country. You'll be loved, adored, and you'll most likely be revered as well, even by your rival countries. But also, the goalie has an objective too. They have to defend their country's honor by protecting that ball from getting anywhere near the goal. And to do that, they need to commit to a calculated choice that will prevent the kicker from making any kind of success in the game. Now, what do they got to do that? Well, one of my favorite quotes from the book says exactly that. Don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do. The kicker in the game has a silent indication of where they're going to aim the ball just from their slight body movements. If the kicker's right foot is their dominant kicking foot, they'll most likely kick to the left of the goal, specifically 57% of the time. And if they're left-footed, that goes to the right side of the goal, 41% of the time. And when the goalie is thinking about this inside of their head, they can't overthink on their decision because they only have one to make. And if they choose wrong, well, game's over for you. But there's definitely still a chance. But what most people don't know is that through that 98% kick to the left or to the right, there is a 2% chance of a kick straight to the center that often succeeds more than kicking every other direction. Why? Because nobody really thinks to do that. And that's a part of the freak mindset that's emphasized by this huge section of the book. Do I want to take the road to the left, the road to the right, or the darkly illuminated path near the middle that nobody else does? When you think outside of the box, you often exceed other people's expectations. They have to adopt a third mindset in order to see what you're doing and to predict where you're going. But the way that they lose is that they never know where you're going because you're unpredictable, you're unstoppable, and you're capable of serving that victory shot that they never seen coming. But the caveat to that is that if you do kick straight to the center and that goalie has the 2% chance to call that shot, they'll just, alright, that was easy. And you'll end up disappointing your country with one of the most boring shots that was ever made in a World Cup penalty shot. That is obviously a possibility, But it's very unlikely, just as it is unlikely that anybody will choose to win via a center shot because they just don't think that it's exciting enough. At that moment, most common people lose that sense of success that they try to go for and that hard work that they do to get to that success because all they crave is glory and love from the people that are around them. And that's one of the main factors in not thinking like a freak and riding the status quo of everyone around you. Paying attention only to what they think of you and valuing yourself a lot less in comparison. Now the idea of balancing beliefs with actions is a lot less simple than it sounds. Hypocrisy is something that's very common in our society and is often ridiculed as a method of humor. You know, on the meme to my left here, it says how Leonardo DiCaprio, quote, uses private jets 6 times in 6 weeks, but lectures everyone about global warming. While this isn't exactly true, I highly doubt that he has enough fuel to use it and it gets refilled by that time. It's still essentially just a smart and clever way of saying that not everybody will stick to the words that they say, which leads me to the study performed by psychologist and journalist Ricardo Cialduli, who examined people's beliefs on pollution conserving devices inside of their homes for a little extra money, but a promise to protect the environment that's in their future. He conducted 2 different types of studies, a survey and an experimental study. In the survey, he gave his subjects 2 options of why they wanted to protect the environment and use these pollution conserving devices and inconvenience themselves just a little bit more for a better future. And 58% of the people said that they would do this, that they would take this option and protect the environment simply for the betterment of the world around them, which sounds very noble until you realize that that's not true, because in the experimental study that immediately followed, there were posters plastered around like several neighborhood American houses that said either do this, like protect the environment for the sake of the world around you, or protect the environment because your neighbors are doing it too. And what was interesting was that the far majority of the people who were surveyed after the study said that they bought these devices and used them in their day-to-day lives because they were told that everybody else around them has too. And those are some of the norms, expectations, and beliefs that many people plaster onto themselves, like the post-its over here, that strip people away of their individuality and make them do things that they do not want to do, or subject them to situations that they don't want to see themselves in because it's self-intoxicating. That level of self-destruction that you allow yourself because you're worried about what others will think of you is exactly what the freak mindset opposes, and which is what both authors of Think Like a Freak try to establish throughout their book. But even despite all that, my favorite part of the book personally is what both Stevens define as their secret to happiness. And while I did use some, a little high concept metaphors, the real idea is that conventional thinking is the brightest and worst chain to your own mind that you can give to yourself. Allowing yourself to lose that light inside of you and be a part of the black circle where everybody else thinks the same way and does the same things because it's socially acceptable is where most people lose to that mental prison that they put themselves into. Like, if you choose to join on the sports team or go to the gym because all the boys around you in high school say, "Oh yeah, do it. Like, you're gonna get a better bod. Everybody else is doing it. What are you, noodle arms? Like, you're afraid to get tough. What are you, pussy?" Like those kinds of terms and phrases could stop you from really doing what you want and pursuing things that you want to do because you're afraid of being looked down upon by other people. That singular fear of being a social outcast and being stripped away of any sense of pride that you have in your character is, again, why so many people lose their sense of freak identity, and which is what makes the freaks in this world much stronger. They choose not to let that chain withhold them, and they choose not to be their own prisoner, their own mental prisoner, let's say. They see that shining light that's in them, and they choose to be the outcast because that's what they're known. That's what they're known to do, and that's what they're not afraid to be. And they're truly happy in that way, and most people can't understand that because they're just unapologetically themselves, which is what makes them special. It makes them historic. It makes them freaks. Now, for my personal opinions of the book, I loved it. I thought that the book really just established these kinds of social values that you have in your everyday life with such silly and very like out there examples. You know, you don't need to be a World Cup championship to want to think differently than others. You don't need to have to protect the environment to just prove that you're not going to crumble under peer pressure. And you don't need to be that metaphorical light in the darkness to show that you can make your own decisions and you have the pride to stick by them. The whole key of thinking like a freak is letting yourself go outside of that box and exploring the world around you outside of your normal way of thinking. It's scary. People fear that idea of leaving that center that they're so comfortable with, which is why so many don't do it. But when you really open yourself up to exploring that truth within you and finding that kind of character that you never thought you'd be in the first place, that's where you feel yourself being the happiest, and that's where you feel yourself being the true version of yourself that you want to be. And yeah, I want to thank you all for watching. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't, maybe you just watched somebody talk about wanting to be a soccer championship. But either way, it's okay to embrace the freak in yourself. And you don't need to be highly intelligent to think for yourself either. You're special in many ways that not even you know. And when I look at the crowd around me and I see who is really capable of changing the world, anybody could be. You just got to think outside of the box. Thank you for watching.
Facts.